she is. There she is. Oh, there it is right there.
I was like,
Krista
are those
Ryan,
legs? What's happening over here?
knuckles right at you.
Knuckles right off the bat.
Hey, look, KFG in the house. Here
Oh,
we
dropping the
go.
bomb on me. That's awesome. Hey,
There we go.
this will
Yes.
make sense for today's conversation too, because what that can stand for is keep feedback going.
Okay. Yeah. Keep feedback going. I was like, keep feedback good. It would have been very cavemanian.
Yeah.
Keep feedback good. Yes. Yes. Or keep feedback going. I like that as well. Krista, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Travis. I am so excited for today's conversation. I'm excited to be with you. We were just talking about how we're both navigating this crazy heat wave where we're at right now. So I don't know where everyone's tuning in from, but let us know because I'm curious on what you're navigating in the world.
Yeah. Well, all the Floridians and Texans, they're just laughing at the Midwesterners, who are changing our entire, school schedules and work schedules to navigate the 100-degree temperature. And they're like, yeah, what's the big deal? This has been 60 days in a row now for, Texas and Florida. So, but it is a major adjustment for sure.
It's a lot going on for my family.
Yes. Well, Krista, yesterday we teased that today was going to be Krista and a special guest. And I didn't realize at the time that I was going to be the special guest, or I wouldn't have called it a special guest. I just would have called it a guest.
You are a very special guest. I mean, I'm so grateful that you're here with me today and with whoever else is tuning in. So thank you for stepping in.
I am honored to, excited to anytime. And today it's Workplace Wednesday. Yes. Yesterday's Transformation Tuesday. Today's Workplace Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thriving Thursdays. THTH. Thriving Thursdays. Thriving Thursday. Yes, I love it. Yeah. So, but we're gonna jump in today to a little a really, really important topic, talking about value and feedback. But before we do that, Krista, always like to start with a little random gratitude. Anyone knows in the chat, everyone knows my random gratitude is always, there it is, the floating iced coffee.
Iced coffee.
The floating iced coffee. And my puppy's asleep on the back couch behind me. What are you grateful for randomly, Krista?
To be honest, I'm really, really grateful for my ice water right now. I am a big water drinker. I am so grateful for that because I've been just absolutely guzzling ice water lately. So I'm really thankful for that, just as simple as that. And I'm really thankful that my two daughters are in the living room, chatting away and connecting and relating to each other and all that kind of stuff, because I can hear that for a couple more days and then they're back in school. So hearing the little whispers and stuff making me so grateful and happy.
Yeah, that is fun. It's, because they'll be gone so soon. And
they'll be gone soon and they'll be fighting probably in a couple minutes too. So right now
true.
There's harmony.
And then you'll be ready for them to be gone. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Krista, we decided today to talk a little bit about feedback, about value, and why is this a topic that is important to you? Or why do you think it's an important topic in general?
I think it's a really important topic, especially for Workplace Wednesday. So for those of you listening, and maybe even you, Travis, I actually come from 18 years as a human resources director. So let me tell you, conversations around feedback were constant. And the special place that we can talk about today is how to really prepare with a neutral mindset to not only give feedback, but also receive it. Because when it's done effectively and appropriately, it is such a gift. It is just a huge gift to give others and to receive yourself, because it's not toxic. It's a beautiful gift because there's growth that comes after it. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, to train about, to speak on. I just love it.
I love it. And so it's funny, as I was thinking about the topic today and thinking about, feedback as a way to, to value your employees, to give them value, for them to receive value. And my word, my wife and I always kind of come up with a word for the year for ourselves individually. And the word I gave myself for 2023 was value, right? And for me, it's three-pronged. It's I want to make sure that the work that I'm involved in is valuable work, right? Is having an impact on the world, right? So as Limitless Minds room tilters, I feel like we're adding value to the world. I want to feel personally that I'm adding value to the work that I'm doing. So whether I'm working with Limitless Minds or the U.S. men's national soccer team or St. Louis University's soccer team, our season starts tomorrow. Let's go. I want to make sure that I'm adding value. And here's the other piece of that too, Krista, is I want to make sure that I feel valued, right? That I'm involved on teams and relationships where I feel that value as well. Sometimes that's how you're compensated. And other times, kind of getting to today's point, which I feel is often overlooked, is just feeling that the force is, oh, I'm appreciated here. I'm valued here. Like this is like, hey, like, you know, I care about what I'm doing. Is that appreciated? Or if not, maybe this isn't, you know, the place where I want to be. And so from your professional background, Krista, how do you see that show up kind of in the good and the bad?
I see it show up. Well, first of all, the value piece is priceless, really, you know, like, so feeling that sense of belonging, feeling understood, feeling heard, you can't put a price on that. You really, really cannot put a price on that. The most successful organizations, leaders, employees, teams, whether professional athletes, you know, sports teams, or in the workplace, the strongest ones I feel can only, or not only, show appreciation, love, respect, and value to each other, but they can receive it too. You know, you can actually physically and emotionally feel it. It shifts, it changes who you are. So I see it show up in many, many positive ways, but Travis, I see it also show up as a missing gap, right? So a lot of times when individuals are like, why do I have so much turnover? Or why do I see my employees or people getting frustrated? A lot of times it's because there's a missing conversation or a missing sense of feeling that value. How about you? Where do you see this show up?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Today's Workplace Wednesday, so we can look at it through a workplace lens, you know, and which is really easy to do. But it's one of those areas when you talk about feedback, it's everywhere, right? Like it's in my marriage of 27 years. Like my wife and I are still working on the feedback piece, and still, right, each of us still wants to feel valued after, you know, it doesn't stop, you know, 27 years in, and then us paying attention to how we are talking to one another, how we're giving feedback, but it's everywhere. It's funny how, you know, we're offline. I had to fly to Chicago on Monday, so my flight home, I'm pumped. I was able to get to the airport, bump my flight up, get an earlier flight. Southwest, I'm on the plane, ready to go, and we're not going, right? And we're not going. And like, you know, another 20, 25 minutes go by, and like you can just feel sort of the anxiety on the plane, the tension.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's looking around, and the woman next to me is like, do you know why we haven't left yet? And I'm like, no, have you heard? Yeah. And then the flight attendant is right there, and she says, do you know, excuse me, like, hey, do you know why we haven't left yet? And the flight attendant was like, well, like, no, I think we're waiting for something, but we don't know. And the woman I'm sitting next to, she goes, you know what? All you have to do is just tell us, right? If you guys could just communicate and keep us in the loop, we're going to be able to handle it. But when we don't know, right? And I just kind of laughed. I was like, that's exactly it, right? That lack of communication. And where there's a lack of there's a quote I heard a while ago, Krista, which I love. Where there's an absence of communication. Yeah, we create stories, and the stories we create are never good ones.
No.
Right, and so the less communication, the more story building, and then the stuff that people come up with, when it's like, no, if you just tell me. So with your experience, how have you seen that manifest?
Well, for one, there was a quote to bridge your quote. I saw it and I just thought, wow, this is so true. The stories we create in our mind are the root of most of our suffering. That is so true. Like, wow, like we can sit there and like create all these false narratives, but the missing information, the truth, that's where this feedback can be so valuable, right? So, and I also like to talk and kind of coach individuals about the fact that if you hold on to feedback because you're uncomfortable with the information, it's actually extremely selfish, because you're keeping that information from others, and that's up to them how to process and respond to it, so it's almost like very selfish or self-focused if you're holding on to feedback and information for the self-comfort piece. Like, I'm uncomfortable having this conversation, so I'm just not going to do it. That's not fair to yourself or others. That's self-sabotage, and it's sabotage. It's the missing gap. It sabotages all aspects. I like your story because that was feedback from a neutral lens, right? So had the person sitting next to you gone and given feedback to that individual and said, like, this is ridiculous, going and kind of because that's easy to do when you're frustrated, when you're scared, when you're acting through the emotions that your stories are, they're playing out in your head, and your emotions are starting to kind of level up and skyrocket. It's real easy to go to that negative place and act through that. The strength and the power is, how to effectively navigate through the neutral lens, and that can bring you to just huge opportunities. So I love thinking about it, and I see this show up all the time. Year-end, like, performance reviews. So if you have to tell someone that they're not performing to their level of expectation, that can be a challenge for many people if they don't see it as a gift. So the opportunity there is, how do I give this feedback as a gift to identify that there's still room for growth, right? And immediately your mind goes to the whole like, oh, they're going to not take this well. They're going to respond really bad. They're going to be upset. So, at Limitless, we talk about name it to tame it. So that's kind of my first action step. If you're giving feedback and it's making you uncomfortable, name it. Hey, Travis, I'm going to have a conversation with you. This is a challenging one for me to, have with you, because I respect you and I care for you and I value you as an employee, but you're not hitting the numbers that I know you can hit, or the expectations that I have for you. So you're still giving feedback with the value piece in alignment.
Krista, when I hear, when I hear the thinking about feedback in a corporate sense, right? Most people think like, oh, well, I'll wait to my performance review and finally get some feedback, right? If we're only getting that feedback during our yearly performance review, is something wrong?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A healthy organization has healthy tension, not harmony. So I'm always like, do not strive for harmony. That's like a false reality. Strive for healthy tension, and healthy tension happens through feedback, and not once in a while, consistently. So I want to feel the feedback, the love, the value, the trust, as a wife, as a mom, as an employee, as a friend, that if something's not working for me or for someone else, I'll know, because they will have had a conversation with me. I won't find out in a year, or I won't find out in 3 months. I'll know. And so I can kind of navigate with that peace of mind that I have such love and respect and trust for this person. I know that they can have a hard conversation with me if they need to. Like that is what I strive for in my life. How about you? How do you know if you're aligned, if you're on the right track in regards to giving feedback or receiving it?
Yeah, I would say sort of different environments I've been where I see it done well. I think about, with Limitless Minds, we talk about kind of setting intentions, right? When I set an intention, it gives me a clear target of what I'm striving for. And now I can go, okay, if this is my intention, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Now I can look at what are the actions, what are the daily actions and behaviors I need to do in order to sort of reach or have that intention. And when I think about sort of feedback, I think of expectations, clearly defined roles and expectations. And so when we're in environments where I'm a part of a team or being managed by someone, if I'm really clear on what my role is and what my expectations are, it really makes it easy for me to understand, hey, this is what is expected of me.
Yes.
And then as the manager or if I'm in a leadership position now, I can keep holding up those roles and those expectations to give feedback or to get feedback.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I think when people struggle, it kind of, they feel like they're in this ambiguous space. They don't know if they're doing the right thing. They don't know if, because they're just kind of, well, I haven't heard anything, so I guess I'm doing the right thing. Or maybe the only time I get feedback from my manager is negative feedback. So am I doing anything right? I don't know what I'm doing right. So, when you've seen leaders that have really nailed the feedback piece, Krista, what does that look like?
Oh, I have a great example that happened maybe a month ago. I've been working with an individual one-on-one, and he's a key leader of his organization, and he was striving for a very aggressive role that was his goal, right? The opportunity came, he applied for it, he was working through it, we were working together on key points to talk through, whatever. He did not get it. So he called me. We talked through things, right away. And he's like, I think I'm going to leave. I'm so frustrated. I deserve this. I know in my heart, I deserve this. I might leave this organization. So I said, okay, what we need to do right now is pause, pause and allow some space, because you've got the emotions real attached to this moment. So I said, I think you need to pause. And then I said, create that space so that you can control your response, and then we talked through, right now you're under the magnifying glass because the organization knows that you really were going after this, and you're being looked at in the way like, okay, this information was given to you. How are you going to handle it? How are you going to respond in this moment? So I think he spent 3 days working on his response and kind of getting his emotions, unhooking from that real high energy emotion. And he went back to the organization, said, I completely understand why the individual that got this role did. It's still going to be a goal of mine. I welcome the next opportunity. And once 3 months later, it happened. He was offered a different position. And then he came back and said, Krista, had I not controlled my response in that moment, I would have shown I was not ready for that role. Their feedback to me was, the way you controlled that response was such a great example that you actually are ready for the next opportunity when it comes. So because he was able to really stay neutral and say, you know what, I'm frustrated and I understand. You can be both. You don't have to agree with all the feedback all the time. You don't, but it's up to you not to. You can either fight against it or you can kind of like dance through it. And he was able to dance through it. It took a lot of work, but he did it. And then another opportunity came. So
I love that.
And I think it will help him be a better leader for that experience. He'll be able, because it's likely he'll have to do the same thing to a direct report at some time in his career. And he'll have that empathetic heart and say, like, you know what, I understand. I know how this feels. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you told him to pause, right? We talk about the power of the pause. Yeah, talk about the power of the pause. That's neutral, right?
I mean, this is something that when you're receiving feedback, power in the pause. I'm a big fan of, Travis, if you're fighting with your wife, you can go to bed mad. You do not have the right conversation in the wrong mood is still the wrong conversation. Sometimes the power in the pause is so important. Well, it's always so important in all aspects of our life. So if you need time for the reset, allow the space. Disconnect from it. Allow that space between the emotion and the response. I have to do it as a parent all the time. My kids drive me nuts, and I have to really allow space to pause so I don't say something or act in a way that I further regret, that I have to go back and undo things. Sometimes I have to say, you know what, I need a moment, and then let's come back to this. But I need a moment just to breathe or go for a walk or take care of myself for this moment.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's huge.
You have a story, and I'm curious. You shared this with me I think it was in a lab, actually, you shared it with an organization. There's a soccer player that you had to kind of support through. So this kind of ties into the value and feedback, but you were supporting the men's soccer team. There was a player that was told they will not be starting. And if I say this story wrong, you step in. But the way that they handled that feedback, they were really struggling, right? And came to you and said, I'm really having a hard time with this. I'm having a hard time. I want to be on the field. I want to be, in the mix. And can you just kind of highlight that story and how and why you think that player was able to pause, control the response, and really receive the feedback, did not have to agree with it and didn't, but then it overall became a success story. Do you mind just sharing that? Because I think that's a really important one too.
Yeah. It was during the World Cup. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, this past World Cup. This particular player found out that he wasn't going to be starting this very important, crucial game for us. And clearly, right, he wasn't happy about it. And so he, I obviously felt privileged when he said, hey, I would like to talk to you tonight. And as we got together to chat that night, he was like, I'm not starting tomorrow, and I'm not happy about it, really not happy about it. And he goes, you need to help me get my head right, because I want to be a good teammate tomorrow. And that's what I was most impressed with. It was like the self-awareness to understand that I need to find the pause. I'm not feeling it, right? I'm not feeling it. Mm-hmm. Help me get to that pause, so that how I respond, my actions, my attitude, my behavior is consistent with being the person that I aspire to be. Right. And so, we talked it out, right? We talked through the emotions that he was feeling, like you said, that were completely valid.
Yeah.
So we honored them, right? We talked it out, and we ended with a hug, and he showed up the next day and was the perfect teammate, and ended up having to play in the game and played really well. And so it's when we recognize it's okay to be upset, like you said, it's okay to be frustrated, angry, confused. Yeah. But we want to find that pause, because in that space is where we're going to find clarity, and be able to respond the way that feels authentic to who we want to be.
And I can only imagine how the story would have played out if he had responded differently, been like blame, complain, be upset, and shown up not as an effective team player the next day. That story may have ended where he did not get into play, That's so fantastic. It just shows the control of the response and the power in we. Like, if you need support to get to be the version of person that you want to be, phone a friend, ask for the help, the support, the feedback to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. It's funny, Krista, I had a conversation. I was talking to a college team a few days ago, and one of the players pulled me aside after the meeting. He said, hey, I'm probably one of the players that my teammates get annoyed with. And I was like, okay, why? And he goes, I tend to be really, really negative. He goes, I really give a lot of feedback, and I know that I annoy my players. And I said, okay, so between positive feedback and negative feedback, so you believe that you're leaning negative, huh? He goes, yeah, almost all negative.
I was like, wow, that's some awareness.
Yeah. And I was like, well, of course your teammates are not going to like you. No. And he kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, like, if all you ever do is give me negative feedback, why am I going to listen to you?
Yeah.
Because and so I said, because if you're giving me negative feedback, what you're not doing with positive feedback is you're not building any trust and respect and value, right? You're not building any trust, respect, and value in this relationship. So I can really respect you and trust you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I said, until you're able to offset that negativity with a lot of recognition and positive feedback as well, it's like, yeah, your teammates, they're not going to want to hear it. And I was like, I said, and I was like, clearly you care. You care a lot. And so it's maybe it's time that you really let your teammates know how much you appreciate them, and all the good things they do as well.
Yeah. So let's
And
talk
obviously,
about
Krista,
that.
yeah, that's not easy. Why is it
No.
that feedback tends to lean so much on the negative?
It leans on the negative because it's easier. It's easier that way to just be, like, it takes more effort, awareness, accountability to make sure you slow it down and do it effectively. Really, it is. Feedback effectively takes time to process, for you to process before giving or receiving. I love the idea or the question behind, when you do have this awareness, Travis, what's the action that we can take behind it, right? So in your example, you had the awareness, like, woo, okay, I really have a tendency to go negative. I have this huge tendency to go negative. Many adults do. Let me tell you. Look at you and I'm going to call this out right away. You and I started to complain about how hot it was before we got on the call. And,
Misery loves company.
yeah, we're like, yeah. Kids, it's so fun to like really look at children. They don't go negative. They really don't. They're not trained. The world hasn't messed them up yet. So I went into a school and I was doing a talk for this elementary school. It was pouring rain out. The students were coming in and they were soaking wet. And the teachers were like, oh, this rain, it's terrible. The kids were like, they came in, they're also soaking wet. They're like, I have a peanut butter and jelly for lunch today. What do you have? They didn't care. There wasn't one word of complaint. So it's easier to go negative. It takes more awareness, effort to go neutral and to control your response. And it's the same for feedback. Let's see what Martin here.
Yeah, we got a great example from Martin here. I remember getting demoted and having to welcome my replacement. And even though I didn't like it, getting your replacement. Oh, Martin, I welcomed the new boss with open arms. 4 months later, I received our employee of the quarter and received some awesome perks for how I handled the situation.
Yes.
Martin, you're the GOAT. That is a GOAT response.
Yes. VIP in the house. That is, and Martin, that's something challenging that you had to navigate. And in those moments are when you can shine the brightest, during the most challenging moments that you don't agree with the feedback, that you don't have to love the situation. Those are actually opportunities to really shine bright. And I applaud you for that.
Hey, Krista, I know we've only got like a minute or two left here. And so, what's a tip or a tool, right? A tip or a tool for parents, leaders, or coaches that they can have, in the feedback toolbox. What do you say?
I love remembering the value, so I'm going to use the Ted Lasso. I'm like a huge fan, but what does this moment require of me, and tie it back to that question, but also like, how can I utilize this moment and make sure I feel valued, as does the other person, or whatever the feedback situation is? What is this moment? What's required of me in this moment? Connecting with value. I think that is just a huge question to kind of put in your pocket, put it on your computer, put it on a sticky note, put it somewhere where you have the awareness to kind of pause and ask that question.
I love it.
That would be my takeaway. How about you? What's your reminder?
Yeah, I would say my go-to, whether it's working with teams or organizations, is celebrate the good, right? Like, create time in your meetings, in your feedback sessions, where we're recognizing the good that we're already doing. The more we celebrate it, the easier it is going to be to replicate it, celebrate it to replicate it. Yeah. And when you praise people for all the good they're doing, it makes it a whole lot easier to give them critical feedback when there's opportunities for improvement. So I think let's just celebrate the good, catch them doing the right thing. Kids, coworkers, everybody, catch them doing it right.
Yeah, I love it. Catch them doing it right and good. That's going to be my word for the day. Good. You don't like Krista, my cookie steak? Good. I have room for growth.
Well, Krista, you are good. This chat was a lot of good, and thank you to everyone here for being here. Martin, thanks for the feedback. And tomorrow, come back, same time, Thriving Thursday. We are going to have Carla and Mike, two of our favorite people, and they're going to be helping you thrive on Thursday. Krista, KFG, here we go.
As always. Yes. Thanks, Travis. Have a good day, everyone.
Take care, all.